Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Anime-Zing Radio. Tonight we have no Doug, so I'm your host, Angela Rose. I'm joined in the co-host seat by Mr. Darren Sterling, who's not dead.
You know, I'm going through a bad spot, so if I lose you, I'm sorry.
Fair enough. And tonight we have a very special episode planned for y'all. Our special guest is AJ, who has done literally all of the planning for our upcoming Japan trip. So tonight we're going to talk about exactly what goes into planning a trip.
Hi there.
And hello to John Knight and Ross in the chat. So AJ, so let's start off with where would you start in planning a trip to Japan?
Well, first thing's obviously going to be when you're going to go. Like, everybody says October is the best time to go when it comes to weather and the like. But for your first trip, if you're looking to go on the cheaper end, February tends to be a better time. The weather is still decent, no snow, unless you're going north, and prices tend to be cheaper.
And also, from a lot of things I've heard, you don't want to go in the middle of summer because it's just too hot and humid.
Oh, definitely. From everything, from all the different J vloggers we follow and the like, the summer is probably the worst time to go. It's between the heat, the humidity, like we're talking 90 to 100 degrees with about like 90% humidity. Plus, when it's not just that, it's also the rainy season when so that's also raining half the time.
Indeed.
But yeah, so after you choose the time you go, then of course you're going to want to pick where you're going to go. There's what's considered the old-fashioned, the golden route, which is for between 7 days or 14, depending, which I would never go for under 14 unless you have to, is Tokyo and Kyoto, with time to see like Mount Fuji but still get really in on both Tokyo and Kyoto and really immerse yourself in the culture and everything like that.
Now, I thought Osaka was also part of that golden route.
It is part of the 14-day golden route, but for the 7-day, it's mostly just Tokyo and Kyoto.
That makes sense because otherwise you don't have enough time to see everything.
Correct. Yeah. On my first time, so we are planning right now my third trip to Japan. My first time, I was lucky enough to stay with a friend whose family was on the military base, the Navy base in Yokosuka. And with that one, so we didn't really go anywhere outside of Tokyo that much, except to Hakone, where we got to spend the day in a hot spring resort. But then our second time was our honeymoon, or my second time was our honeymoon. And with that one, we still stayed in Tokyo the entire time, but it was we just used Tokyo as a staging area and just took the bullet train out to Kyoto to get to Nara and to Hakone to go back to that hot spring resort. So it's like there are a bunch of different ways to do it, especially with the fact that hotels are dirt cheap. Like we're doing a business hotel in Tokyo for 6 nights, and while the business hotel is really nothing special, it's just a pretty small room, but it has all the amenities you would possibly need for let's be real, a trip that you're not going to be spending much time in the room. Now, the trip to the one in Tokyo has only cost me $466 for 6 nights. It's absolutely absurd.
And our first question from the chat comes from Ross. Is it smart to learn the laws before you go to Japan?
I mean, what laws are you really talking about? Because most of the laws are going to be the same as anywhere else. It's just like, don't be a jerk. Like, there's a lot of things that people say are rules, like don't eat while you're walking, don't talk on the trains, and stuff like that. But I mean, let's be real, they're already going to look at you kind of funny regardless. So it's like, as long as you're not purposely being rude, you can get away with a lot of just day-to-day stuff. Like, you're not going to be super inconveniencing people. But yeah, outside of that, it's like, there's really, like, don't litter, don't, like, all that stuff. They take that very, very serious there, and just try not to be like, hey, that tourist. Like, try to basically not bring your culture to them. Try and immerse yourself in the culture that's around you. And yes, please throw questions at us. That is what I am here for tonight. I would love to hear what you guys want to know about.
I think we're losing Darren.
You haven't lost me. I'm just trying to avoid hitting people or people hitting me.
Ah, the joys of traffic.
Well, we're finally back up to 80 miles an hour.
So yes, once you decide where you're going to go, or sorry, when you're going to go, then the next important part, of course, is finding flights. And a big thing is, don't fly into Narita, because Japan has two major airports, Narita and Haneda. Narita is about an hour and a half, like an hour and a half by train, whereas Haneda is more like 20-30 minutes away by train to Tokyo proper. So that's a big one that I didn't know about until after my second trip there. And so with that, it's like, go to like Expedia, go to the different aggregate sites, and just look around, because when you're talking about international travel, it's mostly going to be the same. Like, the seats are fine, the food is fine, and so you're really, it's not going to really matter too much. So go with what's on the cheaper end. Now my wife and I here, luckily, we got very lucky this time, and prior to this trip, I had been saving a lot of points on credit cards, and I was able to book us business class one way going. Which that's going to be a new experience for both of us, and probably a one-time experience, because, oh boy, that is expensive without points. But then you're talking lie flat seat and food on demand and stuff like that. But really, you're going to want to try and save money on the travel where you can, so you have more money for experiences while you're there. And because travel is the getting there is the part that is the most expensive. Like you're talking round trip on the lower end, probably about $3,000. On the higher end, honestly, sky's the limit. And so from there, once you're in Japan, especially right now where the dollar is so strong against the yen, it's dirt cheap to be there.
I'd say, how much would you? I know save money everywhere you can, but what what kind of budget would you bring with you to for a currency exchange while you're there? What's a good average budget? I mean, I know it fluctuates, but
So you're definitely going to want to exchange before you go. Like most like credit cards and stuff do work like for international nowadays, and a lot after COVID, a lot of the businesses in Japan did switch to actually using credit cards. Like in the previous times we went, most of the time there wasn't even like most places did not take credit card at all. But when you're for on average, like not counting hotel and airfare, if you're going for 2 weeks, last time we were there, we spent about $2,000. And it's 2,000 yen, 2,000 USD after conversion. And so I was like, for a 2 week trip, it depends. If you're going if it's a 1 person trip, you could probably get away with about 1,000, somewhere between 1,000 and 2. And so then, like for 2 people, you're looking probably between 2 and 3.
okay. And also, a question I have as someone who's never been out of the U.S. before: are there any kind of requirements, any medical requirements before visiting other countries?
So, as a U.S. citizen, a lot of the requirements are built into our passport. And when it comes to like medical and stuff, no, there is currently, unless you're planning on staying there for more than 6 months, then they recommend you getting inoculated for Japanese encephalitis. I actually did look this up recently because my parents and brother are going to India and they have to go through, oh boy, they got to get about 6 different shots and a pill routine. But for Japan, no, everything's pretty much, it's all pretty normal stuff, like the basic hepatitis ones and stuff like that. Japan is such an insanely clean country that they don't really run into much of that.
I was just curious if that was dependent, like going country to country, or if that was kind of like built into when you get your passports, or I wasn't sure.
No, you have to do all of that completely separately from the passport. However, and yeah, like you said, it is country to country. Like it very much depends on just the living conditions of the country itself. So yeah, what's next? So we got spending money, you got a flight, you got a place, or you got basically the city. So now you're looking at hotels. So
And
if you're
I mean, when it comes to Japan, at least you hear about it in various forms of anime, manga, and other media, and it just seems like when it comes to Japan, there's literally places to stay anywhere you go.
Oh, there's hotels on every corner, and hotels of varying levels. Like there's just like a basic hotel. Well, it starts at, you can go for cheap and you can do hostels, which if any country I would trust a hostel, it would be Japan. Everybody respects your things. Everybody respects you as a person. It's a very safe country. And so it's like you can go on the real cheap, go for a hostel. You could even do a capsule hotel every night. I personally would not recommend that, but that's also because I don't like sharing bathrooms, which is why I would not do either of those ones.
question from the chat. Ross wants to know, is it hard trying to communicate in Japan? I ask because sometimes there could be translation misunderstandings.
Not at all. I would say, probably a good 90% of the people there, while they will say otherwise, speak and understand at least a passable level of English. So they teach that, like they teach English in the schools along, like probably like we would do foreign languages here, but they actually put effort into it, unlike most of us, myself included in that one. And so especially after they started setting up for the Olympics, so they put most signs you find will be in Japanese, Chinese, and English. And so it's like, I think we only ever had like 2 times when we went last time that people didn't understand us.
And I was about to say, and this goes for any secondary language. 9 times out of 10, people will try their hardest to show that they can't speak your language, even if they can, or at least understand what you're saying, because they want to see what they can get away with. And I know this because I speak fairly fluent Spanish, and whenever I go into restaurants and other things, I can kind of tell when stuff's being said. And my boss, her boyfriend was Hispanic, and he would flat out tell her, "Oh, they're gossiping about X, Y, and Z regarding you," and he would basically tell him, "Knock it off. I know what you're saying." I don't know if it's just human nature or what, but a lot of times they will try their hardest to deny understanding you.
So in Japan, it's a little different, where the people who aren't speaking in English, the people of Japan, it's actually mostly a thing where, so the people of Japan in general, they will take something and they will spend as much time as they can to perfect it. So if something's not to a high enough standard for them, they don't want to do it. So for their English, they feel bad trying to speak it because it's not up to their level. So they're more shy about it, like up to the level of acceptance for them.
And I get that. I mean, there's stuff I can do, but because it's not my area of expertise, I'd rather not do it if I can avoid it altogether.
Yeah, it's very much a cultural thing, because like here in America, it's always like, hey, if you fail something, just keep trying, keep learning, keep doing it. But in Japan, it's like they just get more nervous about it, even though half the time they can speak English better than some of the English speakers, some of the people who live here. All right, now what step were we? Oh yeah, we were on hotels. There are major places to stay in Tokyo, because Tokyo is a massive city.
And also, when you have a limited landmass, there's only one way to go, and that's up.
Oh, it's very efficient use of space. But like, for some of the best places to stay, it's like Shibuya. It's the big shopping district. If you're going for budget, Asakusa, I don't really know the correct way to pronounce that. Of course, for all the weebs and nerds here, Akihabara. Let's be real, you're going to go there anyway. Might as well. Shinjuku, best for nightlife. Then you don't have to worry about the trains getting back. And one of the ones that doesn't make the list, and we stayed in by accident, as we tend to do, we accidentally stayed in Koreatown last time. And it was absolutely lovely. Tons of street food, and it was a great time. That was Shin Okubo. And even if you don't stay there, highly recommend you go there and check it out. It's just a nice little area.
The street food in Japan was fantastic.
Oh yeah, the food as a whole was amazing. Like, the only time we got anything that would be considered like subpar for food was when we were at a buffet that had pizza. And even that, it was still decent. It was just not like to the quality of everything else. Which that actually leads great into one of the next topics, eating in Japan. You cannot go wrong pretty much anywhere you go. Like they have, of course, you're going to look for the ramen, you're going to look for the curry, the beef bowl, and all that. Which, of course, for ramen, just look for pretty much anywhere, honestly. But like curry, you want cocoa curry. That one is hands down, in my opinion, the best one. And beef bowl, now that's a fight between people who live there, between the three major, or at least two major chains. I can't think of the third one right now, but you got Yoshinoya and I can't remember the other one, Mitsuya. And I personally am a fan of Yoshinoya, but I mean it's beef and rice. They're all going to end up being the same to a point.
Question for you. Depending on where you go, I mean, they're everywhere. But did you come across any like mom? Hold on. Did you come across any mom and pop shops that had amazing food that you never would have known existed had you not seen it? Kind of like hole in the wall places.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I mean, so we tended to just basically we just walk past a window, see the fake food they got out front, see if it's something that we'll eat, and then go in. I don't think we really found much in the way of mom and pop places, but yeah, really, I mean, that's one of my rules for most of my travels is find a place that looks like it's been there forever. Because if it's been there long, it's been there for a reason. And yeah, they have these family run restaurants and the like that have been there for, I mean, in Japan, been there for upwards of hundreds of years. So yeah, really, you really should just wander around and just see what looks good, see what smells good. If a place only has six seats in it and there's a line for it, it's probably going to be a good time.
Thank you, man. And I'm assuming in Japan, for the most part, walking is the main form of transportation.
Walking and trains, like trains, definitely. Like, the amount of distance covered by trains in Japan is significantly, like even just like normal metro trains is significantly larger than ones in like I mean, we're in Boston, so it's like the amount of space traveled in like between like 2 or 3 stops in Japan is like an entire line here in Boston, and that actually feeds right into a really good other next point. So travel like on the trains in Japan is based on the amount of distance you travel. Like there's the old-fashioned way of you just have you go in, you get a ticket from the ticket machine, you put it in, you have to actually fill it yourself for how much, you have to do the math and figure out how much needs to be on it. And then you walk through the turnstile, you take the ticket with you, because that's a very important thing, because you need to use it to get out of the station. But then there is the Suica or Passmo cards, where it's a refillable card, just throw money on and good to go. Or if you have an iPhone and only iPhone, you can actually just connect it straight. You can connect one of those cards directly to your Apple Wallet. And then you just connect that to a credit card and you can just tap yourself in for the trains, for the vending machines, for a lot of the like convenience stores and all that stuff. You can just pay with your card. So then you can just use your phone to do it.
I got a dumb question. If you're using your card, are you paying a slightly higher rate than if you were to use like coins or yen?
So are you talking about the train card or are you asking about your credit card?
if you're hooking your credit card up, like, or just in general, because the only downside to credit cards is a lot of times the prices are just slightly higher because of the fees added onto them that the businesses have to pay.
So it won't be fee based, it will be exchange rate based. So basically, your card will charge you whatever the exchange rate is for that day. And whereas, I mean, cash is always going to be cheaper. Because, well, it depends on when you get the cash. If you get the cash while the dollar is high and the yen is low, then yeah, you're going to have a better deal that way. But that's why one of the like, most of the time what you do is you get the physical card, and you just go to one of the machines and you put money on it, and you do that through cash. So you're paying that set rate, and there's no like added fees or anything. But yeah, so, and then there is the next level, there is the JR Pass. Now, the JR Pass used to be an amazing deal. Unfortunately, during COVID, they upped it by about 80% cost-wise. But what it does, it covers pretty much all travel on the JR lines, which is most of Japan, including the bullet trains. You have to go for the slowest bullet train, and if I could say that more in air quotes, I would, because it's slower by about 30 minutes to like the fastest train. So really not an inconvenience. But when we went last, it cost about 400 for 14 days. It cost about probably about like $300 to $400 per person. It has unfortunately risen up to $600 for the 14 days, or about $400 for the 7 days. Again, depending on the exchange rate of the day. Now, for us this trip, it's not going to be worth it. But if you're taking the bullet train a lot, that would be 100% worth it, because it would cover the bullet train and all local trains. Like on average, the trip between Kyoto and Tokyo is about $100 each way right now on today's exchange rate. It's about $100 each way. So if you're using the train about 4 times, the bullet train to Kyoto, then that pays for itself. That makes it worth it. But if you're not doing that, then yeah, you're probably going to end up paying more. Honestly, I realize I should probably talk about what our itinerary is.
Before you get into that, question from the chat: is there anything to be careful of in Japan?
Yes, I mean, while I say it's probably the safest country, one of the safest countries to walk around in, especially if you are just a single traveling female, like that, this is probably the safest place for you to be. However, there are things to be aware of. Like if somebody's ever trying to get you into a bar, like if somebody's standing outside a bar and say, come in, don't go to that bar. There is a very problem in Japan of drugging foreigners in these bars, where basically they'll slip you a roofie, they'll take your credit card, and they will charge you insane amounts of money. And unfortunately, there's really not much that can be done when that happens. Like the police cannot really do much. That is one of the issues. The police are not great towards foreigners as a whole, but 90% of the time will leave you alone if you're not doing anything egregious. But yeah, so that's the main thing you have to watch out for. I mean, of course, like every other country, there's pickpockets. If as a woman, if you are wearing a skirt, be aware on trains. Be careful. There are unfortunately, basically, be aware, listening for the click of a phone, of a camera. By law in Japan, this became such an issue that they had to make a law. All Japanese phones have to make a shutter sound when you take a picture with them because of the amount of harassment on trains, on public transit. So yeah, mainly being aware of your surroundings is the most important thing. Yeah. And also, if somebody tries to get you to go somewhere and read paperwork and stuff, that is a cult. There are many cults in Japan, and they are always looking for people. So yeah, those are going to be the main things you look out for. Excuse me while I take a drink for a second. All right, so yeah, we were talking about the JR pass, yeah. Oh no, I was just saying about how we should probably tell them our itinerary for this trek, shouldn't we?
Yep.
Yeah, so this go around. So last time we stayed in Tokyo and just went around. So we didn't get to check out Osaka or anything else like that. So this trip, we're actually doing one of the first things I said not to do and flying into Narita. However, that's because it was a little bit cheaper and because we were immediately getting on a plane to Osaka, where we're going to spend 4 nights there because neither of us have ever been to that one. And that one is a very impressive city and probably, I think it's known as pretty much the food capital of Japan. And so once we do the 4 nights there, we're then taking a quick train over because apparently it's actually pretty close to Kyoto. So we're taking a quick train over to Kyoto for another 3 nights where we're going to be staying in what's known as a machiya, which is a converted old Kyoto townhouse. Basically, they kept the bones of it but modernized it. So it's like a very nice mix of old and new. We've seen a lot of videos on them in the past and figured, you know what, we should do that while we're there. So we're going to be spending 3 nights there. We got tickets to the new Nintendo museum, which that was actually, I really didn't expect us to be able to do that. Oh man, has everybody been able to hear me this whole time?
Yeah.
I accidentally was partially. So yes,
I have.
after Kyoto, then we're going to be going to we're going to be spending 1 night in Hakone, because one thing you should definitely do while you're there is find a ryokan, a traditional Japanese inn, and like you can find ones that have been open since like we're talking like 500-600 AD. Like, we're talking like 1,500 years old. There are ones that are still in the same family. We are staying in a nice one in Hakone, which is an active volcano that has an outdoor bath on the balcony of our room overlooking the mountains. And yeah, we're spending 1 night there, which ironically enough is also going to be on my birthday. I didn't plan it that way, but it worked out pretty well. And the ryokans, most of the time they will handle your food and your dinner and breakfast the next morning. And you can get ones that have like American style or Western style beds, or you can have ones that are Japanese style where you're sleeping on the cushions on the floor, on the tatami floor usually. We chose to do the tatami floor because haven't done that before, so might as well get the experience. And apparently it's actually very good for your back from what I've heard. And they'll come in at night, usually while you're at dinner, and change over the room to set up the beds for you, so you don't even have to do that. From there, I mean, so we're gonna do that, go around Hakone, spend a lot of time in the hot spring. And because one of the things is me and my wife here are covered in tattoos, which unfortunately is still a pretty big no-no for a lot of hot springs in Japan, because they they still have old-fashioned thoughts of associating all tattoos with Yakuza, even though I'm whiter than white, and I don't think the Yakuza would take me. But hey. So finding private onsens, or there are a few. Like you can always go online, and if it'll usually say like we don't accept people with tattoos, and if not, then they a lot of the times they'll have email addresses and the people will speak English.
And some places will have specific rules online about if it's under certain size and can be covered up, then it's fine.
Oh, if you are able to cover them, they don't care. It's like 9 times out of 10. Like the only ones who really care, like even if they're covered, are the ones that are really probably going to treat you pretty poorly for just being non-Japanese anyway. Like they'll just look for an excuse if they're going to be that anal about it. But, and a big thing to do that we purposely do right in the middle of your trip is when you want to book an onset. Just book a day where you're going to be able to just be in the hot spring water as long as humanly possible, because you are going to be tired. You are going to be sore. Like we were averaging about 30,000 steps a day. It's a lot of walking. So yeah, you're going to want at about the halfway point to just take a day to just soak and relax, and your body will absolutely thank you. Now, after that one night in Hakone, that's when we're gonna go to Tokyo, and we actually chose, because of how good the train system is, we are actually staying kind of far out of Tokyo proper. Like we are staying in, sorry, let me pull that up because I can never remember.
While you are looking that up, question from Ross: are visiting shrines worth visiting in Japan? The short answer is yes.
That is not at all what he asked.
Are visiting shrines
No,
worth
it's a-
visiting?
Oh, never mind, that is. I thought it was asking about, are there particular ones? I am mistaken, but I have an answer for that too. And for the record, we are staying in Chuo, which is a bit out of the way of Tokyo proper, but not terrible. Let me tell you about my favorite shrine. It is the Meiji Shrine in, it's in between Shibuya and Harajuku, which you should do that walk anyway, because if you're checking out Shibuya, you should also be checking out Harajuku that same time. It's like a 15, 20-minute walk, and it's lovely. But the Meiji Shrine is dead center in the city. But once you're in, the trees are so tall, you don't see anything. Like you don't see the city anymore. So it's like you're walking into a completely different place. Like you're walking away from the city. And that's one of the things I love about Japan is the old architecture, the nature and stuff they have retained, that like they're not trying to get rid of it to just have more space for buildings. They're still retaining their culture. They're still retaining all of that. And okay, Ross, the steps that you are talking about probably is probably the Inari Shrine in Kyoto. That is the one that has all the torii gates with the very long steps, and that one, I think that takes about 3 hours to go just to get to the top of it. Which
Sounds
that's
like the time I did Watkins Glen.
But yeah, so that one. I mean, you say that what you see from anime. I gotta say, there are a lot of places where you can see where something's based on an anime. But yeah, not all shrines have the long stairs. That's only certain ones. Like most of the shrines are at like street level or like just a few steps here and there. Nothing really massive. But yeah, I remember as somebody who is a fan of the anime Digimon, I'm sure some of you have seen this as well. In the first series of Digimon, they have the fight at that building with a ball in the middle of it, and we went to Daiba and we found that building. That is the NHK. That is the NHK offices basically, and I remember I looked up a picture and I did a side by side. You could actually see the exact shot basically. And it's wild the attention to detail these anime artists have.
Down to the fact in that building, you could not go directly from the second floor to the third.
Nope, you are talking about a very different building that was in Nakano Broadway, and that was from the Digimon video game Cyber Sleuths. That it takes place in this building Nakano Broadway, and one of the things in that is you can't get up to the fourth floor from the third. You have to go down to the second and take an escalator up. Skips the second floor. Skips the third floor.
My point was how accurate the details was.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely absurd. Like just how well they do. Like I said, that goes back to the whole thing of what is like what they do is they take something and they want it to be as perfect as possible. Like one of our favorite things in Japan, the chocolate croissant. Now, we have been to Paris and we have had chocolate croissants there. The ones in Japan, 1,000 times better. There's this place, my friend who I went with my first time, he was all jazzed to show me this place, Choco Crow. I believe it's actually on Google Maps as like St. Martin's Bakery. However, if you put in Choco Crow, it'll come up as those, and they will find it for you. It's a smaller chain. They got a few across Tokyo, and literally the best chocolate croissants I've ever had. And just the Japanese know how to do French baked goods. Again, it goes back to just the fact that all of the food in Japan is absolutely amazing.
One of the things I've talked about numerous times is just McDonald's in other countries is significantly better than here.
Oh God, McDonald's in Japan was phenomenal.
Yes.
So between the jet lag and the fact that we are morning people, we for the beginning of our honeymoon, we were waking up at like 6, 7 in the morning. Japan is not a culture that like businesses open up that early. So it's like we had to really find some place to eat breakfast first. And we ended up just like after not being able to find much outside of the 24-hour family restaurants, or convenience food, we ended up going to a fast food, and McDonald's blew us away.
Question in the chat: did we get to try a crepe? And is it different from what you see in anime?
It is exactly what you see in anime. It is they fold the crepe over and then they open it up a bit and then fill the top with usually whipped creams and custard and pretty much everything else with those giant like the big strawberries that just looks. Every bit of food you get is going to look like art. It's insane.
And from what I remember, the crepes were delicious.
We were not looking in the right places. I remember having trouble finding them. But really, there's like a whole chunk of Harajuku. That's where you're going to find the most for the crepes there. Also, when I said before about convenience store food as a like not great breakfast, it's like no, their food's a great thing. They just don't have traditional Western breakfast foods. And my wife here has this little thing where breakfast has to be breakfast foods. Whereas I'll sit there and get a pork cutlet sandwich from the convenience store at 6, 7 in the morning, no problem.
That's not breakfast.
Breakfast is the first meal of the day.
First meal of the day is coffee.
Oh, and if you're a fiend like me and you don't drink coffee and you have energy drinks for your caffeine of choice, it's a pain. It's a bit of a pain. They're selling energy drinks everywhere. They're selling Monster and all that, but they sell in these half cans, and the half cans have about 60 milligrams of caffeine. Now, my first trip there, I didn't know that. And I was trying all the Japanese energy drinks, and that led to a lot of headaches for the first week I was there before I realized, oh, I'm going through caffeine withdrawal.
All right. Question from Ross. Is it smart to save and not spend on the unusual vending machines?
So the question is, what do you mean by unusual vending machines? When it comes to food, all the food stuff from vending machines are going to be, that's all cheap. That's fine. If you're talking like the gacha stuff and then when you find like that weird area in Akihabara that I'm sure most people who have been interested in vending machines will have seen, there where you can get like bugs and random boxes of who knows what. That's when you're going to get to the pricier ones. But really, unless something in the gacha machine really, really catches your eye, for me, it's a bit of a waste, personally. And when it comes to vending machines, I'm all about the food and the drink. Oh, a hot lemonade. They do a hot lemonade on my first trip was in January. My second trip was in February. So the mornings were a little chilly. And again, I don't drink coffee. So I needed a hot drink. While the hot chocolate was always phenomenal, the hot lemonade just hit different. I don't know what about it. And yeah, so it's like you can go to all the different vending machines and find a different drink every single time. And they're usually like $1 each. So you do it anyway. And it's great.
Some of the sodas were just very odd. But we're talking 100 yen, so about $1 at that point. So worth it for the experience.
What'd you get? Peach Coke or was it strawberry Coke?
It was peach, and it was just weird.
Yeah, that one was definitely an odd one.
But then again, I didn't have bad coffee out of the vending machines. There was also a lot of tea, which was really good.
Oh, you say that, but at the same time, because you didn't know it, we weren't following as many J bloggers at the time. You didn't even know about the hojicha, the roasted green tea.
Nope. And I'm looking forward to getting that this trip. I think another weird one was the soup out of a vending machine.
Yes, the corn porridge and the red bean soup.
Not bad, just weird.
Yes, Ross, the vending machines you see in anime that have like panties and the like they do exist. They're not as prevalent as media likes to make it out to be. Usually, if you're going to be finding those, you're going to be finding those in the 18 plus sections of the places in like Akihabara and stuff like that, where it's just like they know what you're looking for, and they know what anime portrays them as. So that's something that's mainly just for tourists. So yes, that is 100% a waste of money. Also, if you see, speaking of waste of money, If you see Wagyu on the side of the road, it's probably it is Wagyu, but it's not the good stuff. It's not the A5. It's if you're paying like $10 for if you're paying like $5 for a stick of Wagyu, they're giving you the bad stuff. Oh no, Ross, those vending machines that you're talking about are very weird.
You are not the only one.
All right, what do we got next? So when it comes to like planning your day, there is always going to be the stuff you absolutely have to do. And if you can, you're going to want to book it as soon as you are able to. Now, unfortunately, they do not make that easy. And so what ends up happening is some places you can book up to 2 months, like up to 2 or 3 months in advance. Some places, like the Ghibli Museum, they open up bookings for the month on so many days beforehand. Or no, it's like it's a certain time of the month every month. That is such a pain. Like we're still waiting. I believe it's October 9th is when I'll be able to book us like for the week of the like the 23rd. And apparently the bookings for that go very quickly. So even that, we're not even 100% sure if we can do that yet. But so yeah, you're gonna have those places that you absolutely have to see. Don't try and book everything like to the minute. Because yeah, you might see all the things you think you want to see, but you're gonna be exhausted. You're not gonna be able to experience anything outside of those things. And most of the time, those things are, of course, where all the tourists go. So there's going to be a ton of people, and you're not going to get really a lot of the actual culture of Japan. You're going to get what they present as the culture, which is a subtle but important difference. Now, I'm not saying don't do these things. Like, you're going to want to go to Nara to pet the deer. I know that was a very big important thing for me. But like after petting the deer, I went onto Google Maps and I sat there and looked around it. Oh, well, what else is in the area? And then that's when you go off the beaten path and you explore and you just see where the road takes you.
And we stumbled into a street fair not far from there.
No, the street fair was a different one. That was when we were walking from Ueno.
Because in Nara or Kyoto, we ended up getting some really good street foods. I remember the potato on a stick.
You're talking about when we found our way to the Fushimi Inari Shrine. They were having a little mini festival outside.
And comments from the chat, since we brought up Digimon earlier. John Knight is sharing that this year is the 25th anniversary of the Digimon dub, which kind of makes me feel old. And then he's asking you, what was your gateway anime? What got you into anime and subsequently Japan?
Oh, man. So for me, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm 36, turning 37 years old. And the first anime that I watched, not knowing what anime was probably Sailor Moon on WB at 6 a.m. I would wake up every morning and I would watch that, and then I would get home and I would watch Ronin Warriors. And so it's like that's what got me started just like watching it, but I didn't know what anime was. Then when I was in 6th grade, I joined an anime club, and the first one I watched there was Fushigi Yugi. And so a pretty typical romance anime of like, I don't really remember a ton of it, but yeah, that's what got me into, that's when I really realized, okay, so And like, it's like that is anime, that is like Japan, and that's when I just started loving it. And I remember the bootlegs of Neon Genesis Evangelion that my brother had a friend send him a burnt disc of that we watched a ton back in the day. So yeah, that's probably, I would say that's probably what got me into anime, and then through there, just through watching anime is what got me into Japan and Japanese culture as a whole. And do you want to read off that next one from Ross?
The next one is from Ross. Are the cafes in Japan interesting or uninteresting?
Interesting is definitely going to be the word to say. Now, does that mean good? I don't know about that. That's really going to be a matter of opinion. I have only been to one of the themed cafes. We went to the Square Enix cafe last time we were there, as I am a massive Final Fantasy fan, as you might be able to see from my profile picture being my cosplay of Auron from Final Fantasy X. Unfortunately, when we went, we could only. I didn't book ahead of time, which is very important for for those pop-up cafes. And the only one they had that day was a Japanese-speaking one with no English. So we didn't know anything that was happening, and it was a game we didn't play. It was Nier based, no, not Nier Automata, but that was what had come out recently. It was the game before that, one that was an Xbox exclusive that I didn't really know about. But and at these cafes, the food's usually pretty meh, but it's all themed around stuff you know. They usually give you stuff like give you little like coasters or postcards, and then you can hit up the gift shop, and that's where they really shine. Like for me, that's all I really wanted was the Final Fantasy gift shop, and I remember that year I got a Final Fantasy 15 wallet phone case that I used until it literally started falling apart. And that is the Square Enix Cafe is another one of the ones I'm waiting for being able to book ahead of time. I think I got to wait another week or two for that one.
And again, hoping we can get Final Fantasy stuff this time.
Oh, I'm sure Square Enix knows where its money's at. It's going to be. There's definitely going to be Final Fantasy stuff at the gift shop. If it's not, unfortunately, right now it's again themed for currently. I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon, but it's currently themed for the upcoming either it's upcoming or it just released re-release of the game Live a Live or Live Alive. Not 100% sure which one it is, which was a very important anime RPG back in the day. So that's what it's currently themed. But again, I know that the gift shop will have Final Fantasy themed stuff, and that's all that matters.
Indeed.
But yeah, definitely plan your day maybe around like one or two big things and space them out. And then from there, honestly, just pick a direction and walk. Or like if you're going to say Tokyo Tower or the Sky Tree, go to a train stop that's a little bit further away. And because you're not going to be able to lose it. You'll look up and you'll see it. And you will definitely be able to get there, get where you're going, but you're going to go a different path that is not just, oh, you get off the train and you're there. And you'll see more about, like, you'll see people who are just living, going about their lives and see how they live. You'll experience that instead of just what, like, the stuff that is more like showy.
And then question in the chat for you. What is your favorite dubbed anime?
That is a difficult question, unfortunately, due to people being awful. So for me, it's honestly a toss-up between the safe option of Cowboy Bebop. That one was just a phenomenal dub, and when when I decided it was time to show my wife that anime because she had not watched it. She's like, "We should watch it subbed," and I'm like, "I will not budge on this. You're either watching it dubbed or you're not, or you're watching it alone, because that is an anime that the dub is legit perfection." The other one is Full Metal Alchemist. Unfortunately, despite him being an awful person, Rick did a phenomenal job with Ed, and everybody around it was also phenomenal. John, why do you know all of them? Why do you know the anniversaries of all of the dubs and subs? I'm quite impressed.
That is his thing. He shares this every week.
Oh,
it is
nice.
fantastic.
He is on it.
Yeah, apparently, as he says here, it is the 25th anniversary of Bebop's dub as well.
And Ross wants to know, is there any place that has a wonderful view of nature?
Literally everywhere you go. If you just, like I said, it's like they still keep stuff in the middle of the city, but other than that, you can just go, like you go out of the city at all, like you're on the trains. If you're out of the city, everywhere you look is like a picture. Like it's like you could take a picture and it'll be like the most amazing thing.
And on clear days, from various points, you can see Mount Fuji.
Fuji, unfortunately, is also quite temperamental. It very much doesn't like to show itself some days. It likes to cover itself up in clouds. It's a very shy mountain.
And there's also just some gorgeous park areas. Even in February, the trees were actually really pretty.
We were actually in Yoyogi Park, and we didn't even know at the time, but we found out after the fact. We realized after the fact that we actually found some cherry blossoms. There are some that actually bloom early. They're more of a cold weather breed, and we actually were even in February able to see some light amount of cherry blossoms. Oh, that's another thing. Cherry blossom season is probably the second worst time to go. Yes, it's gonna be insanely pretty, but you have to time it right. And with global warming making it just so unpredictable as to when the temperature is going to rise, because that's the thing, cherry blossoms, it's not a set time that they do. They blossom when it warms up. When the cold goes away, that's when they start to blossom. So because of that, you're going to go there, you might not even see it, and you're going to pay twice as much for flights, for hotels, for everything is going to be so expensive. So I personally, I would never go during cherry blossom season.
It's one of those things where I want to, but at the same time, I recognize it's not going to be worth double the cost.
No, definitely not.
And then back to the chat. Have you seen Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 with Shibuya City?
Man, you're asking me all the questions that are going to get me in trouble. I do not watch Jujutsu Kaisen. I only read it because I've sunk so much time into it that it's almost over. That it's I think it's either ending this week or pretty soon. And I don't like it personally that much. But so yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the person to ask about Jujutsu Kaisen.
I haven't seen it either, so don't feel too bad. No interest to.
It was like it's not bad. It's just not my. It's not my cup of tea.
And I think that is a point of conversation we've had many times on the air, because we all have different tastes. And Jujutsu Kaisen is not one I have seen.
Coming from the shonen girl, that's actually hilarious or shocking.
I have tried Ross. I have tried Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and yeah, didn't really catch us.
And
I'm not hating on it, but it just didn't really catch us after we gave it like 2 or 3 episodes.
and that was one, even after meeting and spending time with Christy Rothrock, just never got into that one.
I wonder how she's feeling with the announcement of the movie coming out.
That I don't know.
Well,
And,
the announcement's only a day or two old.
John, I will answer that question and say we watched Attack on Titan entirely subbed.
However, I have seen clips of the screaming in the Italian dub. Apparently, the Italian dub as a whole is hilarious from what I've seen. Also, I don't know if anybody has noticed, but at the beginning of this show, I put on our TV here just some guy walking around Tokyo at night. John, I tend not to watch. I don't really watch much dubbed now. Usually, any of the dubs I watch are stuff that I watched as a child, and because once I start watching something dubbed, I have to watch it that way. I also haven't watched Demon Slayer. I've read the whole thing, and that it's phenomenal, the reading, but we have so much new anime that we watch. It's so hard going back to ones.
And Demon Slayer started, and then I've been meaning to get back to, and well, yeah.
I watched season 1, and that was it, because it kind of just fell off like My Hero.
That is fair.
But I will say this. I was going to mention it, but I was on the road. I have actually watched more anime this week than I have in a long time. But only a couple of the shows were seasonal. I was actually playing catch up to a show that I've been meaning to for a while. I binged 17 episodes and a movie of Reincarnated as a Slime. And the movie was almost 2 hours.
You know, I've been looking at my watch lists. I need to go back. But from the chat, is there a good place for sweets and desserts? Yes.
Oh, that's very easy. There's a bakery on almost every corner. It's all French bakeries, and they're all phenomenal. Every single one. One of the biggest things, like when you think of baked goods, of course you think of all the sweet stuff, but the real standout in Japan, I have to say, is the bread. Just straight up toast, because they do the milk bread. It's the lightest, fluffiest bread ever, and they know how to toast things absolutely perfectly. It's mind-boggling, the quality.
Is that why anime characters can run with bread in their mouth and it not fall apart?
Oh, it definitely holds its shape very well. But yeah, like I said, there's French bakeries everywhere. Like they have a mix of sweet and savory things. Like one of my favorites, actually, the curry bread, which is literally just a bread bun that has curry inside, and it's delicious.
I would love to see the inside of a high school that has the vending machines that sell that stuff, or the cafeteria, because it's like in every anime you see, you go up to the cafeteria workers and they only have a limited supply of X, Y, and Z every day.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of the schools are going to let you just walk in. They tend not to like that, especially foreigners.
I know. I'm just saying though, it would be nice to get like a tour of, you know, because one of the panels um, that I attend every now and then, it's basically a Family Feud um, game, but what they did was they surveyed actual Japanese high school students. They did kind of like a teaching. They were teachers over there, and they taught the Japanese students English, I believe. And they ended up surveying them, asking them questions, and made a whole game show out of it that they bring to conventions.
So, funny enough, there is actually trying to figure out where it is. There is actually a school that was abandoned, and this guy took it over and turned it into a hotel while still retaining the school, like a lot of the school aspects itself. So there is actually a way you could do that. It is out in the it is out more in the countryside though.
Not surprising. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen there's certain areas of the U.S. At least there was one guy. I don't know how true this is. He put up a TikTok. He bought an old school building, and that's where he lives.
We might be talking about the same guy.
Maybe.
Yeah, this we follow this guy Tokyo Lens. I'm sure she has talked about him before on here. And yeah, he finds all the stuff like this. It's absolutely wild. Yeah, this guy lives in a abandoned Japanese elementary school. All it says is in the mountains, or Tokushima is where it is. Yeah, but now it's a hotel, so you could actually stay in a Japanese hotel, or sorry, a Japanese school.
From the chat, are the trains actually crowded in Japan?
Yes, if you are on them during like the peak times, yes, they are exactly what you see on the videos where there's a dude pushing people in. However, if you're not on them, like when people are going to school and work, and when people are getting out of school and work, yeah, it's pretty fine. Also, very, very comfortable. Like, the trains are very nice padded seats. Because skirts are mandatory in the various levels of schooling, which a lot of women in Japan tend to continue doing because that was their entire childhood. You'll actually find that during the winter, the seats have heaters, like a heater that runs along, like right under where your legs are. So it keeps your legs nice and warm too. It's very nice, very comfortable. During the summer, you're screwed, but that's pretty much everywhere you go. Because they don't really have air conditioning in the trains that much. They usually have fans. And that's about it.
And Japan, from what we've seen, gets very, very humid.
I meant to ask Matt while he was there, is the humidity there comparable to the southern humidity we get here?
Yeah. Like you're talking like 90% on the regular. The air is soup. And not good soup.
Well, like I said, very used to it.
Yup.
What are the temperatures like? Like, does it get in a general sense? Do the summers in Japan get as hot as they do like here in the southern part of the U.S. or even in y'all's area?
Yes.
Well, I don't really know how bad it can get in the South. I mean, I try to avoid the South as a whole, but definitely in the summer. So it's like where you're talking like 90 to 100.
Okay, that's about average here because I know it takes some adjustment anytime I listen to an anime and they're talking about temperatures because the main character's sick or something, and I see Celsius pop up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. We're the only country that uses Fahrenheit.
Correct. And from the chat, are kotetsus really toasty in the winter?
So when we went, it was never really cold enough for it. So we never ran into any of them. For the record, for people who don't know, the kotetsu is a table that is usually placed over a recessed area that they usually have a heater going on under it. So you and a blanket all around it. So you basically get in there and never want to leave because it's very nice and warm.
Yeah, Tokyo was on average slightly warmer than New England.
When we went in February, it was usually about like low 50s to low to mid 60s. So like it was very great just being like light jacket weather.
And then we had one day of snow.
Is it incredibly windy given it's the city?
Not really. Like I've never really noticed it to be that bad. But again, it's like that's one of those things where it's like when you're only staying there for 2 weeks, you could have just missed it. So I can't really speak to that. I will say, like I said, it's in Tokyo itself. It's usually very mild weather outside of the summers. Like if you go north, you're going to get to the colder weather, of course. But like for us, what we have upcoming, it looks like end of October to early November is like at its lows in the mid 50s, at its highs like mid 70s. So it's going to be absolutely gorgeous weather.
Is it hard or easy to regarding crosswalks in Japan? How different is it from here in the U.S.?
So a big thing that they do there that a lot of America, especially Boston, doesn't do is they actually wait. They listen to the lights. Like even if there's no cars around, if that light says don't walk, you don't walk. Really, you just do what everybody else is doing.
So no jaywalking.
No jaywalking. That is not a thing there. But that again goes along with a lot of Japan as a whole. They follow the rules. They have these social rules. They have all of this stuff, and they follow it because that's how they're raised from a very young age.
Well, don't forget, in Japanese schools, they don't even start teaching stuff that you would learn in school until after the first 2 years. The first 2-3 years of Japanese schools, it's strictly teaching manners and how to behave in society.
Which, let's be real, I think America could do with a lot of that. That would be pretty helpful.
I think that could really go for any country.
Also true. But yeah, regarding the crosswalks, even Shibuya Scramble was actually organized because everyone follows the signs.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the tourists who want to get that video, get that picture in the middle of it, and they're the ones that cause problems. Because when everybody's moving, you move with them.
It's like keeping up with the flow of traffic.
Yep.
No. But yeah, definitely one of the things we're planning on doing this year, because we've seen a lot of people do it in the videos, is going out at like 4 or 5 in the morning before Japan wakes up and just walking, just finding a place to see the sunrise. Oh,
There we nope. There we go.
Sorry, I got home a while ago. I just didn't switch devices.
yeah.
So basically, a call of the night scenario.
Yeah, it's just it's going to be so peaceful, and you can watch the city wake up. It's like that's the stuff like that is what makes the travel worth it. Like seeing not seeing what like everybody else says you have to see. It's going and making your own experiences and finding the things that you wouldn't normally. Just keep yourself open to every chance you can. That's
Speaking
the way. That's a real way to travel.
And
speaking of which, did you ever try to watch Call of the Night? I know Angela did and couldn't quite get through it because it wasn't for her. But did you ever try it?
She watched that one without me, so I've honestly actually have no idea what it is.
Basically, it's your upper age middle schooler can't sleep, and it's about Japan's nightlife, like from 11 o'clock at night to like 4 in the morning.
Everything's middle school.
I will say this: as much as it was not for me, the art was gorgeous. The soundtrack and score was fantastic. It was the writing that killed it for me. And I would argue the main character was worse than Denji. So you might actually like that. But from the chat, is there anything really important people should know when, if they're in Japan, to be safe or cautious that we didn't already touch on?
I mean, really, there's not really a ton more. It's just like it really is a lot of what could be considered common sense. Just be kind, be polite, look around, see what other people are doing, and honestly, don't be afraid to ask questions to people. Don't and like there, while I was not as glowing as I could be about the police there, they will try and help you if you ever need it, like as best as they can, and you can find them if you can find them pretty easily. There's police boxes all around. There are, or you could go to any of the convenience stores like 7-Eleven and the like, and they can help you. It's like Japan is a very for such an isolationist culture. They are very kind to the people that they find, like even Americans.
One thing we didn't bring up was about keeping your passport with you.
Yes, that is actually by law. You have to keep your passport with you if you are not a citizen, and even if you are a citizen, you then have to keep your citizen card with you. So a very important thing to have with you is like a passport holder or something, just something that you can also keep, like you can keep some spare money and stuff like that, just like that you can keep tucked away, not in a purse, not in a bag or anything like that, because unfortunately, like I said before, pickpockets are a thing there as well. We were listening to I was listening to a podcast where this guy was talking about how his wife got pickpocketed and she's holding his passport for him and everything. And he's actually he actually lives in Tokyo, but is a U.S. citizen. And he And yeah, it's like, so he had to go through the process of getting another passport. And from everything I've seen, that is not a process you want to go through, especially not while you're on vacation. It's not easy. So yeah, getting a good holder is very important.
On that note, question, and I'm asking this because of the way you said you were staying in different places. When you take your luggage with you, I guess you could say, do you take like a suitcase or do you try to pack it all like to one of those like hiking backpacks? Or how many changes do you take? Do you wash your clothes while you're there? Like, how do you
So
go about that if you're constantly not staying in the same place?
so that is actually still something that my wife and I here have been discussing and figuring out. My personal idea. So since we are staying second in Kyoto in the townhouse, they actually have laundry in it. So it if we wait until like pretty much the day before we go to Hakone, then we're going to be able to do laundry, and then we don't need to pack a full 14 days worth of clothing. So we're actually right now, my plan that I'm trying to convince her of is basically taking our carry-on suitcases. So still a decent sized suitcase, but one that you can fit as a carry-on and isn't a pain to take from place to place. And then when we get to Tokyo, after we've probably bought a lot of stuff, and then we'll continue to buy more stuff, we also buy a suitcase there, because 90% of the airlines for Japan or that go to Japan are going to usually give you at least one free check bag. So it's very easy to go to Tokyo with a smaller bag and come back with a second bag.
And that makes sense. I've heard this is a common practice among the rich, but I mean it could apply to also like people that go there for business. A lot of times they won't bring much of anything with them. They'll buy the stuff while they're there, use it for the duration of their visit, and then before they leave, they can either decide to bring it home or they'll donate it to, I don't know if they have like used clothing drop boxes or whatever, but they'll kind of basically donate it back before leaving. That way they came there, got what they needed, and left with nothing. That way they can avoid pretty much everything at the airport.
That is an interesting idea, and depending on your body type, it could go really well or really poorly. So that is
My,
definitely not a good idea for everyone.
True. My friend Matt, that's been on here before, that's also been to Japan. He's as tall as I am in the 6 foot range, and he's on the bigger side. Um, so he said maneuvering Japan was very interesting for him.
I mean, I'm 5'10" and a half. And yeah, even I have trouble like with finding clothing there. I've had trouble. Oh god, I bang my knees so many times on tables and stuff. Because you sit down and there's like a little place for you to put stuff, but nobody tells you that. Nobody says that that's there. And so you sit down, ooh, you're banging your knees.
Um, the travel related question, from your experience when you first traveled to Japan, should you travel light?
I feel like that goes back to what I was saying a little bit ago. It's like it really depends on the type of hotel you're getting. If you are able to do laundry, I mean, I'm sure most hotels will also have laundry services as well that you could just pay to have that done. I have no idea how much that would cost though. But it also, I mean, that very much also depends on what time of the year you go. Because if you're going during the winter, your clothing's going to be a bit heavier than if you're going during the summer. Like I don't get cold very much, so when I don't really expect to bring any like long sleeve shirts with me outside of a dress shirt for our fancy dinner night that we do. And so it's like, yeah, packing light is a good idea because you want to give yourself space because you're going to buy things. It's very easy. If you like clothing, you're gonna buy clothing. Oh, the Shibuya 109 building is phenomenal for that. It's just a 9-floor building of all clothing. And yeah, so we spent an pretty much an entire day there last time, and we're probably going to do it again.
And I found a lot of clothing, and it's all well made.
You are lucky, somewhat. You can find tops for days because you are a smaller woman.
Yep.
She can't find pants very well over there.
I struggle with finding pants here.
Yeah, it's even worse over there.
Hey, to be fair, I struggle finding pants here because I'm tall and I'm skinny. So finding stuff in like a 34 length with only a 32 waist or a 30 waist is damn near impossible without having to go online and special order it.
Yeah, I'm running into that problem myself right now.
An anime-related question. AJ, have you seen the show High School DxD?
Seen of it, never watched it. Didn't look like something I really wanted to get into.
And now going back to travel-related.
Well,
does switching shoes when you go inside get easier, or does it stay unusual when visiting Japan?
Honestly, it's not super common. Like you're not really unless you're going to a lot of old traditional places, not a lot of places do that. Like not as much as you would think. But I'm also somebody who takes my shoes off when I go into houses anyway. So it's not that big of a leap for me. So it's like honestly, it's something you'd get used to. It's like if a place usually requires you to take your shoes off, they'll provide slippers for you. And so it's like it might not be the most comfortable of slippers, but you'll be fine. It's not going to be that weird.
well, I'd say, and Japan's not the only country. I've noticed some of my customers that are from other countries. 9 times out of 10, I go up to blow off their porch, and there's just shoes everywhere on the porch because they don't wear them in the house, like at all.
Oh yeah, no, we have a foyer for it, like a little area, a little mud area.
And I grew up with that as well. Granted, I think half the reason my parents made us take our shoes off before going in the house was because I spent a lot of time outside in the mud.
Well, if you have hardwoods, that's one thing, but if you have carpet, ew.
Oh God, I know. I'm a janitor. That's the kind of stuff that goes into my nightmares.
Well, it's funny. I was talking to one of my co-managers the other day, and she said when she had one the stores she did in the past, because of all the construction out there, it was a constant battle to keep the dining room clean. And she said they came in one day right after they had just put brand new carpet down, and they were doing asphalt work, and they had tar and oil and stuff on the bottom of their shoes, and that stuff is still in the carpet to this day.
Yeah, that is a nightmare.
Because you can only get so much of it out without having to replace the carpet.
And that sounds just bad luck. But
I realize something I should probably talk about is saving up for these trips. Because when all in, I'm not going to say penny pinch, but if you are frugal about these things, you could probably do a 2-week trip to Japan for about $5,000. Yes, that is a lot. Now, but what I've done is I put $50 away every week from my paycheck. If you're able to do that, that is fantastic. Or I started doing 50 a week. And so with that, basically you could afford a trip one, maybe two people. If both people are doing it, even better. In about 2 years, in about 100 weeks. Like Japan, it seems like an insurmountable like trip for a lot of people, but with proper planning and starting now, like not like, oh, I'll get to it eventually. If you start as soon as you can and as soon as you can afford, and you can get there, you can definitely afford it, and it's a lot more doable than a lot of people think. Also, don't worry about the flights. It's a 13-hour, like it's a 14-hour flight from us in the East Coast, and yeah, it's long. It's definitely long, but you sleep a little. The even in economy, the seats are surprisingly decent for sleeping, but you sleep a little. You watch the movies. It goes by a lot faster than you think, especially on the way there, because on the way there you're so excited.
I still haven't been on a plane
At all?
at all, and I'm 28.
Wow, yeah, my parents have been like we've been traveling basically since before I was a year old. My parents were taking me on planes. So for me that's always just been a normal thing, like flying from Boston to Vegas every August. It was has been my family's vacation since I was or since my father was 11, so but my entire life I've been doing it. So for me flying is not really even a big deal at all.
Yes, same. I think I was less than a year old on my first airplane trip.
Well, I take that back. I have flown once before, but it was when my mom was pregnant with me. So, does that count?
Give you a half point.
But yeah, I've in all of our travels, we've never really left the East Coast that much. So, and my dad was the type, just drive. Let's just drive.
And that's one way to do it.
Hell, in that case, you should get to Europe, because if you can get to Europe by flying, then once you're there, you can just drive, and the amount of time it would take to get from like North Carolina, you North Carolina or South Carolina?
North,
Yeah. So the amount of
Central
time,
North.
yeah, the amount of time it takes to get from North Carolina to Boston, you could go like 3 different countries in Europe.
Yep. You know, it's funny. I see a lot of videos from there's this guy that comes up in my news feed. It's like some guy from Britain that came to the US and loves to compare the two. Um, and basic like when it comes to like a heat wave they call in Britain here is like a normal spring day for us, or how whenever they talk about driving, like within 3 or 4 hours of driving, you can basically cover most of the country. Meanwhile, here, you can barely cover a state.
Um, Ross is sharing a weird experience with flying. Coming home, somehow I keep getting sick when it comes to landing, but every other time I'm fine.
Yeah, landings can be a bit rough here and there. It's very common to get like an upset stomach then.
And
Oh, while we're on the subject of flying, I know you probably don't remember it that well, but do you remember flying pre 9/11?
Oh yeah,
Like,
definitely.
yeah,
what about to say, what, what was it like? Because I know there's like two totally different experiences.
I mean, for one thing, when you were getting picked up from the airport, people would be waiting for you at the gate. There was no TSA or anything like that. They like people could walk up to the gate without a ticket. The only time they checked your ticket was to get on the plane. That's the biggest one. You could bring whatever you wanted. You could bring a 2-liter bottle of Coke. And and like you would get this has nothing to do with 9/11, more of them being cheap, but you could also just like they would give you full ass meals if you flew like if you were like on a flight more than like 3 hours. That was a very, very different experience.
Mm-hmm. And unrelated to travel, John Knight says, "Do you collect anime Blu-rays and DVDs?"
I am not. I don't like physical media that much. I much prefer stuff being digital, and especially nowadays with everything streaming being so easy. Like I see no need for it. Our roommate actually does a lot of the DVD stuff, and it's just so much stuff. I can't. I just can't have the space for it. Although I do still have some old DVDs from when I was a kid and collected back when it was hard to get anime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, hell, I still have my VHS and whatnot, and I don't plan on getting rid of them anytime soon because it's a physical form of media. Should something ever happen to the internet, or should something ever happen to X, Y, and Z services and they quit working for unknown reasons, you still have methods of entertainment.
Yeah, you think that VHS is going to last much longer?
They
That
still,
thing's going to break.
mine still work.
Yeah, until your VCR breaks, and then you can't find anybody who fixes it because they all died 20 years ago.
True, but at the same time, you never know.
Um,
Besides, my friend was telling me the other day he was looking for a VCR, and he said those things are going for like $200 and $300 a piece on eBay, like and or Amazon, and that was literally about the only places you could find them.
yep. Getting back to Japan, Ross wants to know, if you visit, do you have to use the honorifics, or can you just be your normal self?
The expectations for a visitor to Japan are very, very low. Just even like throwing in a Japanese word or two here, like here and there, is enough to blow their minds sometimes. They do not expect much out of us. So the honorifics and all of that is definitely not expected of you. You just be your honest self. Just be who you are. Don't don't try and be what you think they want you to be.
And just
Which honestly, that goes about life in general.
And in general, just don't be an asshole.
Really wasn't sure if we were allowed to swear. I meant to ask you that beforehand, but forgot.
I
Yeah,
swear
it happens.
so.
I've done it a handful of times. I can count on one hand though.
I don't think I've gone enough. I don't think I've gone an entire episode without swearing. But yeah, when in doubt, just be yourself, be polite, and
Just be just try to be a normal functioning member of society.
exactly. And going back to anime, are we ready for the fall anime season?
What do we got?
I'm still watching summer.
I think it's 5. I might have added a 6th. But I am looking forward to fall. And summer I gave up on.
I watched a lot this summer.
Yeah, we swapped places for once.
Oh, you decided you wanted to be busy this summer.
Oh,
Yeah, true.
I guess you can put it that way.
But out of You know what? Out of everything we talked about, which anime are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, you're saying me?
Yes.
Oh shit. I need to remember what's up. Give me 1 second. I know I'm looking forward to Gun Gale because that was fun when we watched the first season. And Chrome does not want to cooperate.
And then Ross says, one fact I know about Japan that I will never get used to knowing is that the H's and the grades for schooling is weird to him because the age range and the grades he thinks doesn't match up.
That is something I definitely have never really looked into, so I can't really speak on that.
I think it just boils down to every country has a different way of what determines grades.
Everyone's education system is different.
Mm-hmm. And what we call high school here in America, I believe the Brits call secondaries.
Oh, let's not even go into the British system. That one's more chaotic than anything else.
But yeah, Ross, that just boils down. Every country's got a different system.
So, seeing as we only have about 13 minutes left on this, or
Yep.
is there anything really that I didn't really touch on? You think?
Don't think so. I think we talked a lot about food. We talked a lot about the different transportation, stressing that you don't over plan things.
Yeah, I talked about hotels, trains. Huh. Oh, one thing about trains. The people in the train stations will help you. But actually, one of the biggest helpful things for getting around, get a data plan, get a Wi-Fi puck, get some way to have data or Wi-Fi or signal or something. Google Maps is amazing. Like when you put in a point A to point B and you put it on for the trains, it will tell you exactly how to get there, including what part of the station, like what track and everything, where to enter the train station, where to exit. Like Google Maps is a lifesaver in Japan.
You know, when my cousins, my aunt, her husband's mother was Japanese because she married his father who was in the war. So he was stationed in Okinawa. So when they went to go visit that side of the family, back in 2010, 2011, the only way they could communicate with the rest of us was through Facebook and other internet methods because that was back before cell phones were really on a global network in terms of providers per se. You couldn't
Yes.
do international calling.
Yeah. So for us, this trip, so last time how we did it was Verizon. We had Verizon, and they had an international plan, which is good. It has calling and data and everything, but it's a very limited amount. And when I'm sitting there doing all the mapping and everything for where we're going, you can run out of that pretty quickly. So what I do now, nowadays the phones have the eSIMs, and there are various companies that will give you an eSIM for however long you need. Like the one we are going to be using this time is one called Ubigi, Ubigi, and you just pay for you pay for data. You pay like we're looking at this one for Japan. You pay for 10 gigabytes of data. It's $17 for a 30-day period. And the only problem is you can't make phone calls like regularly, like with your phone. You have to go through WhatsApp or Line or one of the various other messaging apps.
Or even Facebook Messenger.
Yes, Facebook Messenger, or if your iPhone, you can call other iPhones using FaceTime, voice only, or just FaceTime. But that is actually pretty important, is making sure that you do have some kind of data plan.
And that's how their Facebook accounts came into be. Was Facebook was the only way at the time that they could message us while they were over there.
Yeah, and when you have a data plan like on your phone, you can do Facebook Messenger and Facebook like calling too. So it's like we definitely live in a time now where everybody will still be able to be fully connected, even in a completely other side of the world.
Let's face it, I'm not going to go halfway around the world and not call my mom and say hi.
And you need to ask people, hey, what do you want for souvenirs? Better to do it live.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. My friend Matt, when he went, he brought me back a couple of things. He brought me back he got it out of a crane, one of the crane games, but it was a Pokemon plush, a small one. I think it was Rockruff, and it was in Christmas gear, so it had a little Santa hat and whatnot. And he also brought me back a prize figure out of one of the machines for what's her name from? Oh my gosh, the name of the anime just blanked on me. Give me a minute while I think about it.
Well, to that point, AJ, you get a thank you from Ross for all of the information. And John Knight wants to know, who's your favorite voice actor?
I honestly do not really pay attention to that much. I do recognize when people are used in a lot of different anime, but I don't really tend to pay attention to their names because I'm just bad at remembering. I'm bad at remembering names in my own language and of people I see regularly, let alone people who are in other languages in whole other countries. But probably if I'd have to pick one, the guy who is everywhere, who is from Way of the House Husband and various other ones that has a very, very gruff voice that is very distinct. And Ross, I was happy to be here. I am by no means an expert in Japan in any way, shape, or form, but I just absolutely adore traveling and planning trips. That's just something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of. So I've learned a lot, and I try to pass that along to everyone I can, or at least everybody who is interested or will sit still long enough for me to just keep talking at them.
And
I remember now.
Suda is apparently the name.
And I remember which figure it was. It was a prize figure for Sagiri from Manga Sensei, because that was one of the shows at the time that I was watching, or we were watching, I should say. But he was there 6 months on an exchange program kind of deal.
And AJ, for you, John wants to know if you've ever seen this show by Rock.
That name does not sound familiar at all. I can't say that I have.
That is a music-based anime. It's one of Doug's favorites.
Is it like Bochi the Rock?
No,
No.
It's
No.
like it's an idol-ish anime kind of deal.
Yeah, no, I can't say I've ever heard of it.
yeah, that just gets back to how much anime there is that's accessible these days.
Oh, damn, one more thing I just remembered. There's a ton of animals in Japan. There's a ton of cats just wandering the streets. Don't mess with the crows.
I was gonna ask, considering the anime that just came out this summer, are you familiar with with My Dear Friend Nokotan?
That's the one with the deer girl.
Yep.
I have seen like clips or I've seen like images from that. I haven't actually checked it out.
If you watch the opening and the ending, if you watch the ending, it's literally just shots of deer all around Japan. And a lot of times the cut scenes in the show that they'll go to, like during the halfway point of the show, will be like a shot of Japan and deer involved in it somehow.
So the city of Nara has deer just wandering around. Like they are completely docile, well, mostly docile, but you can feed them, you can pet them if they let you, and uh, and if they know you have food and you're not giving it to them, they might give you a little nip or a little headbutt. But they are that's definitely something I recommend doing. It's a lot of fun just going and seeing all the deer.
And one last question from Ross. Did you ever see the Japanese game shows on TV while in Japan? And did they make sense?
We actually didn't really use the TVs much at all because I have, even saying a rudimentary knowledge of Japanese would be generous. I've been doing Duolingo for almost 2 years now, I think. But let me tell you, Duolingo is not really great for learning. I'm just trying to get to a conversational level of like a kindergartner is what I'm aiming for, really, being realistic. So yeah, we didn't really turn on the TV much because there was not really anything we were going to know what was even happening. Actually, no, we did turn on the TV, but that was when we went last time. It was during the Winter Olympics. So we saw a little bit of the Winter Olympics from the Japanese feed, but that was it.
My friend, when he was in Japan, unfortunately, that was when North Korea was being North Korea, and he said that one time that he was there was when they pulled one of their stunts, and the TVs that were in their rooms basically came on automatically with a warning uh, about something North Korea was doing, missile activity or whatever.
Oh, he was there for one of the alerts. Yeah,
Yes.
I've watched a video from Chris Broad, who Broad in Japan, who he talked about his time in Japan when that happened, when that was happening. It's just terrifying.
Well, my thing is the fact that the TVs can turn on by themselves is.
I mean, when it comes to emergency information, that's not a bad idea.
True.
And on
But still.
that lovely note, good night, Ross. We'll see you next time. Yeah, it is that time. So, AJ, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
It was very informative.
I don't know. Thank you guys for having me.
And for everybody else, until next time, stay happy, stay healthy, be safe, and have a good night.
Keep watching anime. You forgot that part.
That too.
Good night, people.
Good night.